Good morning, everybody, and thank you, Simon. I'm going to conjure my presentation, which is going to have a brief number of slides. So that's my mugshot there on the bottom right. That's not the important part. BIM for Housing Associations was formed in 2018 to accelerate the uptake of BIM within the social housing sector. And one of the things that we've been accelerating, or one of the biggest accelerants, is fire safety and the golden thread requirements that are emerging from the new building safety regime. So we need to know about our buildings, and we need to have single sources of truth. But what I'll start out with is a little bit of a reality check here in what is the current state of play. This is a typical set of drawings with this is the building services and MEP overlay for a typical dwelling, and this is what gets handed over from the construction process to any given client. There's no block numbers, no flat numbers, no cross-reference to schematics. Bit of an arrangement there. And why is this a problem? Well, if you have a responsive repairs, if you need to carry out some work, for example, a leak from one flat to another flat, then you're working off of plot numbers. They don't have any association with the actual addresses. Here's another sort of schematic of this is a district heat network. Those are what the HIUs are. There's a little bit of a reference there about what the impact is on asset managers. I think it was a really good quote from Dame Hackett from back in February 2018. So what does this mean more in practical terms? I was sent out on a particularly long-standing complaint. There was an HIU, or district heat network, issue with the circle flat there, and there's the M&EP reference numbers from their information model that has a really clear logic to it, but it has absolutely no bearing on what the asset management information model. So when we're talking about digital twins, there's a truncation between what is in the capital development phase and that's handed over to the operational phase, and that golden thread is severed in this way because the referencing numbers, very quite simply, just don't match up. So somebody 5 years down the line trying to cipher through a set of information from the capital phase, they're going to have a lot of challenges. This is every building that's being produced, I think, in the UK, certainly in the residential sector, regardless of social housing or whatever. So what would better information look like? Well, there would be why is this important? These are all the things that we need to do to buildings. We have compliance, fire doors, fire stoppings, AOVs, planned preventative maintenance. Every dwelling you're going to have to go into and touch the HIU and do something to it, the MVHR as well on an annual basis. And then we have cyclical works that will be taking place every, 10 to 15 years. So one of the things that in a conversation with the future regulator at the health and safety executive, what are they going to be drilling down on when it comes to checking compliance for the golden thread, the new building safety regime, is metadata. So I think this has a direct relationship to digital twin, and I'll try to explain that in a second. So what are we doing to make that metadata? Is to put our asset information models referencing system into the front end of the construction process. So using 19650 methodology, our asset information requirements, our exchange information requirements, we're dictating to the supply chain to put our internal unique property reference numbers that are outlined on this particular slide to apply our, in a sense, our digital twins nomenclature, our logic into the front end of the process. So our plans from the beginning to the end have numbers that make sense to our asset managers. So this is in alignment with, you can see there in the bottom left, it's aligned with the UK Housing Data Standards. They're listed here as HACT, Housing Association Charitable Trust. Also, it's COBE, so it's lined up with IFC and our internal systems. Here's a quick example. So, I don't want to go into too much detail on that. This is a reference to how BIM for Housing Associations has taken 19650 and detailed the BIM framework for our particular sector. And on the top right is what our current asset information models look like. There's a list there of various software systems and basically our data containers that we have for our existing assets. And when we're producing new capital phase projects, they kind of get shoehorned into that. But the next step in the evolution, in our particular sector is or developing an asset information model that is aligned to external standards. So that will be obviously IFC, Uniclass, and this is how we're going to be delivering the golden thread. So it's just a really quick canter through what we've been working on, and hopefully that's been illuminating on, I think really how far we are in reality from having a digital twin that reflects our buildings, that's compatible with how we procure buildings at this particular point in time.
So I'm just bringing on screen the Slido, and we're just going to go through questions. Hopefully that's come through. I think it has. So the first question here, Jack, is to yourself. Is it possible to create a complete golden thread without a digital twin?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I think the answer is yes, it has to be. And when we are talking about the golden thread, I'd encourage everybody to reference the Building Regulations Advisory Committee's definition of the principles. And when you're in an organization that, or really a sector that pays a lot of attention to compliance requirements, I think, on one hand, there's going to be a big challenge with people trying to deliver building safety cases in the golden thread because some of the principles are high level on purpose. The government doesn't want people going through checklists. And I think what that means, to try to answer that question a little bit more directly, is there's going to be different ways to deliver the golden thread. So there will be a way to deliver the golden thread, I think, without BIM at all. And there will be a way for a golden thread to be delivered without a digital twin. For an organization like Southern Housing's size, when we have 33,000 properties in management, we've got 320 million pounds under construction now. So we're adding to our portfolio. We need to be able to manage things consistently and at scale. So we need to deploy BIM. We need to start to move in the direction of digital twins. What I took and what my team took to start the business case and to set the brief for the asset information model, we took the Gemini principles, rephrased them a little bit so they're a little bit more meaningful to our sector and our people internally. So yes, it's possible to do it without a digital twin, but the best way to do it is to use BIM to give us a digital twin.
Very good. Thank you. And the next two questions are for you as well. So the first one highlighted in purple. How did the supply chain react to the changes in information requirements, some of which would have been quite small, companies, etc., and they might have requested more fees? So how did you engage with that?
Yeah, that's the cut and thrust of contract negotiations has been varied. It's been surprising. One particular case that we have now, one project that we have now, where the land deal required us to novate an architect that we didn't really want, that our contractor really didn't want, because they're kind of a small fry, they're a small practice. They're trying to add a whole bunch of fees because when it comes to BIM, they're terrified. They don't really understand it. On the other hand, where we have a joint venture with a big main contractor, I will say their name because it's going well. Hill is an advanced, I think, in the BIM area. What was really refreshing was that because we have a clear set of asset information requirements that are realistic, And it's really the output of a collaboration between a bunch of different housing associations that we compared the things that we need to touch on an annual basis or less. We've got a list of maybe about 125 things, and we know exactly what we want. We have a prototype or an exemplar of the Kobe output. And with that, when we say to that contractor, this is what we want, and then this is when we want it according to your EIRs, no cost uplift because they can deliver it. And so it's going across. And, one of the other contracts that we had was, the supply chain didn't really read our EIRs or AIRs. And they asked us for 200,000 pounds extra to do BIM because they said it's going to take a lot of time to model the wall ties. I said, well, that's not useful and that's not deployable. And they said, well, you want to know everything about the external wall buildups because of Grenfell. I was like, wall ties don't burn and nobody's going to count that. So forget it. And so it's a mixed bag is the bottom line. It depends on who you're talking to. And some of the small firms, they are clued up and they can deliver. So it's not really the size of the dog in the fight. It's the size of the fight in the dog. It's really how clued up the people you are dealing with are, I think.
Oh, very good. And being proportionate and appropriate to what you're trying to deliver and the use case, and not just do everything for the sake of everything. Absolutely.
Yes.
The next great question here is really linked to that is, can you speak to the importance, relevance of consistent and high quality data models?
Yeah, and I think for us, a data model can be, when we are looking at our asset data architecture as it exists today, we've got a whole bunch of different data containers, and we have critical information on spreadsheets, moving into the right places. How critical is it? I think, for the golden thread, it's absolutely critical. I think the expectations of what we will be having to communicate to fire brigades when they arrive on site in the premises information boxes is miles ahead of what we do now. So, going back to the presentation where I've opened up premises. So here's a little sort of, I think, illustration where witnessed a sprinkler test for previous organization, wasn't aware of work now. A sprinkler test in a residential situation means that you have to do a wet test. You have to make the flow switch in the pipework spin. That flow switch triggers an actuator, goes to the panel. If that panel is confirmed fire in a real life situation, but that will send a notification to the London Fire Brigade and they will come out because sprinkler goes off, confirmed fire. The operative carrying out this test didn't disable that. Fire brigade came, false alarm, really embarrassing, really upset me because they could be doing something important like a real fire. And then they opened up the premises information box, and then they had a set of drawings from the construction phase. Basically, the building was this big, and then there's grid lines all around it. That's all part of the data model, everything. The information that the operative should have had to understand, I need to shut off that. I need the code for that panel. And then when the brigade got there, they should have a set of drawings that has the address on it that they can read. It's, really kind of simple. In, what the output should look like, but getting all that information in a way from, the hundreds of people that are producing it into a data model that's useful of deployable information, bloody hard work. How important is it? It's life or death.
Yeah, very true. Very true. So the next question we're going to go to here, should the data models for housing be consistent with other related data models, for example, energy, water, gas, transport, etc.? What's your views on that?
Absolutely. I think that, there's a lot of thought that's been gone into, especially in infrastructure. In our terms of reference that you can read if you have nothing else to do, but if they're publicly available, we really underline that whatever BIM for Housing Association does and whatever recommendation I would make internally or to colleagues or peers or anybody in my sector is make sure that what you're thinking and what your data models, it's aligned to existing standards. The whole world is way ahead of us. And why reinvent the wheel? The wheel works. Use it.
Absolutely. So the next question from Steve here, I'm not sure the full phrasing of it, but we'll see if it jumps out to you. We need standards for comms and data structure, but flexibility in data content. Couple DTs, say where BIM elements are individual digital twins and to externals. So I feel like might be missing from the end of that, but
I
have a point.
Yeah, I'm not sure I can answer that question. Because I don't quite understand it. I think what they're talking about is interoperability. Maybe Steve, if you can rephrase that or ask again.
Yeah, you can edit your question, Steve, on the chat, so you can address that. So another one here for you, Jack. How can you make BIM less scary?
I think one of the things to make BIM less scary is that by necessity, the ISO had to have a whole new vocabulary around appointed party and appointing party. And when I really first engaged with it, it was published, it confused me, it annoyed me, because for me, in my world, as in development, design and build as a preferred route contract, the appointed party, the appointing party is the employer. JCT, D&T, D&B, I'm the employer. Appointed party will be lead designer, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's about demystifying some of the language so it's more relevant for whatever you're actually doing. That's one thing. And I think one of the other things that's been helpful to make BIM less scary is some of the results that we've been able to achieve in terms of cost and price. So, overall, even though there's, some of our suppliers have, tried to charge us money or do need to insert extra costs into the contract, we've spent about £450,000 on BIM on £320 million worth of contracts. That's a drop in the bucket. That's nothing. And the amount of control that we're getting during the design phase by hosting our own CDEs, I think so. To make it less scary is to make it more attractive.